So first of all, collective punishment isn't just stupid, it is a war crime. Number two, the difference is that in Gaza, although there are some extremist Israeli politicians who are against peace with Palestinians, it's not some. The main party coalition that governs Israel right now is against a two-state solution and against a one-state solution. They are against both proposed solutions on the table. They do not want peace. You can't like, plus, like, what sort of peace are they interested in? They're interested in the kind of peace that allows for an ongoing, slow-rolling occupation that slowly ethnically cleanses Palestinians. That's not peace. That's just a slow-rolling ethnic cleansing and apartheid state. 2 or 3 here. An objective some Israelis have weakening infrastructure Hamas uses in order to have peace through strength with Palestine. Hamas doesn't have peace through strength at all? Wait. An objective some Israelis have weakening infrastructure Hamas uses in order to have peace. So basically your argument is that in order to defeat Hamas, you need to destroy the infrastructure that 2.4 million people use in order to attack the, I don't know, we'll say 15,000 Hamas fighters may use. That is literally collective punishment. You're just describing the war crime. Like, I don't know, like, how much more obvious to make this, but like, how do I go about saying this? This is like saying you would be justified in cutting off all food and water and energy production capabilities within the state of, like, I don't know, Utah, because there is a secessionist movement there that is heavily armed. And in order to get at these people who, are frequently off the grid, the only way you can do it is by destroying any healthcare facility they might use, destroying any roads they might use, destroying any place where they might be able to resupply. And what you are describing there is just bombing, like, hospitals and grocery stores and really anything that is a building that allows people to sleep in within the state of Utah. Like, what I'm describing is there's an actual secessionist movement to rebel against the United States and secede with a large portion of Utah, and there's a large number of people. There are thousands of people who believe in this. And your literal argument here is like, well, because these people might want to violently secede, it would be justifiable in, like, bombing, like carpet bombing the entire state of Utah in order to combat them, which is insane. Utah's government didn't murder 1,200 Americans and runs a in the hypothetical, like, so you're saying if Utah killed 1,200 Americans, if Utah's National Guard took or not National Guard, but like state militia or whatever, the secessionists killed 1,200 people and were religious fundamentalists, which they are, like, you'd be fine carpet bombing the entire state? Like, that's the argument you're making, right? Like, hypothetically, if these secessionists who are religious fundamentalists murdered 1,200 people, you'd be fine carpet bombing the millions of people who live in Utah? Because that's just insane, frankly. Like, we when a mass shooting happens, we don't just, like, bomb the neighborhood the mass shooter is from, even if they're a religious fundamentalist, to kill any potential conspirator. Like, this isn't a thing you would apply in any other circumstance, and you apply it mainly to the people in the Gaza Strip because they're far away and it doesn't affect you. Hamas aren't secessionists. They are the government of Gaza. how in what capacity do they represent the 2.4 million people in the Gaza Strip? Right? Like, genuine question. If they're authoritarian dictators who hold on to power without any democratic input whatsoever, right? Which is what you're alleging. How can you then justify collectively punishing the people that they violently control? They the majority of people who live in the Gaza Strip weren't old enough to vote for Hamas during the last election. So like what are you arguing here? Like, Hamas is bad. They're a bad and evil organization. But it's also bad and evil to kill 30,000 civilians to try and get at and punish, like, the minority of them. To my understanding, and I might be wrong on this, so I'm open to correction, when polled, the majority of Gazans say they do support Hamas. Yeah, when polled after they started getting bombed to shit. When polled after 80% of the residential infrastructure of Gaza was destroyed. Like yeah, if you're being polled, like, hey, how many of you support your government in Hawaii the day before Pearl Harbor happens? You're going to have very different results than, hey, how many of you support your government the day after Pearl Harbor happens? This is not surprising. You know, that like after 9/11, George Bush had 90% approval ratings. This is oh my goodness, that the Palestinians support the only like accessible military intervention that at least claims to be fighting on their behalf. That's crazy. Incredible. That's shocking. It's shocking that that after 30,000 of them were slaughtered like animals, that they might support, you know, the only force that they have access to that is claiming to oppose Israel. The people slaughtering them like animals. The people imposing the support of Hamas right now are the Israelis themselves, by bombing them nonstop, by collectively punishing them. The people who are imposing support of Hamas here and are propping up Hamas are the Israeli government. And by the way, that has been something going on for a long time. Netanyahu bragged about supporting Hamas. He bragged about making funds available to Hamas. Netanyahu is currently the guy who runs Israel. Like, he's talked about scuttling diplomatic peace talks between Israel and Palestine in glowing terms. He takes pride in the fact that he has personally had a hand in ruining any chance there was at a two-state solution. So, like, the people who are propping up Hamas the most, the people who are using Hamas and benefiting from Hamas the most, are the Israeli government officials, are the Likud officials who are currently in power and who have repeatedly voted to fund Hamas, who have repeatedly made moves to encourage this ongoing conflict, and who are currently using this talking point as justification to murder more civilians. Sure, Pander. Netanyahu was explicit on this a few years ago, reportedly, wanting to keep Hamas. Yeah, he literally is quoted as saying, if you want to stop a two-state solution, fund Hamas. Right after he helped fund Hamas. It says link deleted. You have to whisper it to me in a message. Or to a mod. Links are blanket, not allowed in Twitch chat. We've had too many neo-Nazis, oddly enough. Oh, interesting. You've been banned in 10 different channels, like Gremlo, Willow, Surfer McGritty, Shark 300. That's really interesting. It's quite a rap sheet. Indeed. Can someone check this link to make sure it's okay? Because, again, the reason we don't usually allow links submitted by chatters in Twitch chat is because one of the last times I clicked on one, it was just a video that was screamed the N-word at max volume. Yeah, it takes a lot to be banned in Shark 300's chat. What did you do? I just posted the link in .gg chat. Someone check it out. Let me know it's okay. Yeah, almost seems like a bad faith actor. It's nonsense, but I don't think it's harmful. Okay, cool. Oh, it's the Yaron Brook show. Yeah, Yaron Brook, very, very, wrinkle-brained capitalism defender. Oh, this is unhinged already. Gaza's humanitarian crisis is a good thing.
So let's we have a bunch of Middle East, Hamas, Israel, Houthis, Red Sea, Iran, Iraq, updates, Hezbollah. So I'm just going to run through them. Nothing too much in depth here, but just a general analysis. I did a show on Tuesday about what it means for Israel to win and what I think the likelihood of it winning. So if you're interested in a more in-depth analysis of the Israeli-Hamas battle war, really the Israeli-Palestinian war, please go and watch that show from.
No, but there's a famous debate between Sam Cedar and this guy where Sam Cedar just mops the floor with him.
A couple of days ago. I'll just say this. There's growing skepticism in the United States and in Europe and in Israel itself about whether Israel can win. Not just win in the strategic sense in which I meant on Tuesday, but even win in the tactical sense of defeating Hamas.
The answer is no, because the leadership of Hamas isn't even in the Gaza Strip. The idea of they're defeating Hamas is predicated on Hamas actually even being there, which most of them probably aren't at this point.
This is because I think in the US and in Europe and in Israel, the push is to have this war shortened and to have Israel stop soon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also this notion that Israel cannot and should not kill a lot of people. And of course, under those
much of the Hamas leadership is in Qatar. They're in Qatar. So the idea that, well, we'll just bomb them and get all of the leadership of Hamas, even that isn't correct.
It's very unlikely Israel can even win a tactical defeat of Hamas. As I said the other day, to win even against Hamas, Israel has to make sure the Palestinian people suffer, starve. I mean, humanitarian crisis is not a bad thing when it comes to Gaza. It's a good thing because that'll mean the Palestinian people will start putting pressure on Hamas. Also, all these news articles think that
they'll start putting pressure on Hamas. With what exactly? With what? They've just lost their homes, their families, their children, their brothers, their sisters, their parents, their grandparents. Their neighbor's family line was just eliminated from the face of the earth. With what resources are they going to put pressure on Hamas? Again, Hamas is a violent terrorist organization that doesn't shy away from using violence to keep Palestinians in line. They're very similar to Israel in that respect. They're not shy about using their violence against other Palestinians. The main issue is the people doing the most violence right now, the Palestinians, aren't Hamas. It's Israel. So the fatal miscalculation that Yaron is making here is that, by making everything exponentially worse for the Palestinians, they'll turn against Hamas, which isn't how people function in these circumstances. Because they're not going to be saying, fuck you, Hamas, the people who are claiming to be fighting against Israel right now. for killing my son. No, they're going to be saying, fuck you, Israel, for killing my son. They're going to be directing their anger and outrage against the forces who are inflicting the suffering, not on Hamas. It's just going to bolster Hamas support. Yaron Brooks is a real goddamn ghoul, for sure. He's also a fool.
That the more the Palestinians suffer, the more pro-Hamas they become. It's just not true. That's not how it works in history. The more they suffer, the more anti-Hamas they'll become.
This is honest. Like, we're 2 minutes in, and this is honestly one of the stupidest things I've heard all day, which is saying a lot.
The humanitarian crisis Israel has to inflict. Second, Israel has to kill a lot of people affiliated with Hamas. We're talking about thousands of people.
You know, what's fun here about the language he's using is they have to kill not members of Hamas, but people affiliated with Hamas, which is, again, if you want to accept that they are functionally the government of the Gaza Strip, you're just talking about killing everybody. That if they're the functional government of the Gaza Strip, what you're talking about here is just killing everyone affiliated with their government. Like, if this is the argument you want to make here, that they represent the people, that they were elected in 2006, this is just saying you need to kill everyone in the Gaza Strip.
So, and a lot of civilians will die in the crossfire. So you're still looking at lots of casualties on the ground. Of course, the casualties coming out of Gaza, the numbers that Hamas reports, don't separate civilians from military personnel, Hamas military personnel, because Hamas military personnel all dressed up like civilians. So you can't tell. But also because Hamas has no interest in telling you how many of its own people have been killed. But,
well, the thing is, the Hamas Health Ministry isn't affiliated with the militant side of Hamas. The Hamas organization has different parts within itself that operate, especially in times like this, with a certain amount of independence. The Gaza Health Ministry has been able to accurately report the death data for the Gaza Strip for like a very long time now, and has been relied upon by all sides of the conflict, even going back to previous conflicts with Israel. It's interesting now, though, that Israel chooses to say that, oh, well, actually, they're lying this time, while providing no actual numbers of their own. See, this is just a game to, like, throw doubt onto the actual scale of their atrocities against Palestinian civilians. This is not actually a concern for the accuracy of the numbers in this case.
Close to anywhere between 40 to 50% of the people killed are probably Hamas operative.
Oh, you know what's really interesting here?
In telling you how many of its own people have been killed. But, close to anywhere between 40 to 50% of the people killed are probably Hamas operative.
40 to 50% of the people killed are probably Hamas or Hamas affiliated, which is an interesting thing to say based on zero evidence. This is just him pulling a number out of his ass. Otherwise, he would provide a citation.
And it's going to have to destroy all the tunnels, not some, but all of them. And that's going to require time to find them, discover them, to bomb them, to destroy them. And they're going to have to.
And again, if the Israeli argument is to be believed, these tunnel systems are underneath all of the Gaza Strip, which is very convenient. Oh, they just have to bomb all of the Gaza Strip in order to ensure that all of the tunnels have collapsed, which is just, again, an argument that justifies ethnic cleansing, like, full stop. This is just arguments that facilitate genocide.
To kill the entire leadership, and given the way they're fighting right now, it's going to take them months.
Again, the overwhelmingly vast majority of Hamas's leadership aren't present in the Gaza Strip.
Months to do this. And it's true that if they stop fighting in the next few weeks, as Biden administration wants them to do, as the Europeans want them to do, some Europeans already turned against Israel, Then
so strange. You know, the the Hamas is just weeks away from surrendering. Oddly enough, this came out 2 weeks ago. That's crazy, bro. They're weeks away from surrendering. A couple weeks goes by, they haven't surrendered. They're weeks away from surrendering. A few weeks go by, nothing happens. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people die.
And they can't win. They can't even destroy Hamas, never mind win-win. That is, defeat the Palestinians. They are really, really stuck, right? All right, so that's quickly on kind of the pressure worldwide. Israel is still fighting on the ground. As I said the other day, it has now entered central Gaza. It is significant battles in the center of Gaza, still significant battles in Khan Yunis, and they're still cleaning up operations in the north. They have not finished in the north. They keep kind of declaring victory in the north, and Hamas keeps popping out of tunnels. So there's still a lot of work to do just in the northern Gaza of destroying tunnels and of finishing off the remnants of Hamas in the north. This is not going to end anytime soon. Again, the way they're fighting now, it could end very fast, but Israel's not willing to do that, and the world would go apoplectic if they did. Right, at the same time, Israel is also conducting major operations in the West Bank. As of late last night, early this morning, hundreds of armored vehicles and thousands of Israeli troops entered several cities across the West Bank, including Jenin, Nablus, Hebron, Ramallah, and Jericho, all in an effort to capture, destroy Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad infrastructure in the West Bank. This could get ugly. Supposedly, early this morning, there were firefights going on all over the area. This is the largest scale combat operation by the IDF in the West Bank, probably since 2002.
So here's a new update, just real quick. The numbers that reveal the extent of the destruction in Gaza. This is from, what was the date? January 8th. So literally like a week ago. Okay. At least 22,835 Palestinians have been killed. That number is even higher now, obviously. About 7,000 more are reportedly missing, and most are likely dead. So that would bring it up to about 30,000 Palestinians. Another 58,000 have been reported injured. And again, there's no medicine or really any medical care that can be given to them aside from anesthetic-less surgeries. So the survival rate is probably very low for those injured. Then we have, let's see here. But last month, when the Ministry of Health, Gaza Ministry of Health's figure was 15,899, a senior Israeli official confirmed a reported Israeli estimate of 5,000 dead Hamas militants and roughly twice as many civilians, giving a similar total of 15,000. An IDF spokesperson called the ratio of 2 civilians killed for every 1 combatant killed tremendously positive. Interesting. No, Spectral Pyre, Yaron Brook absolutely believes that any 18-year-old or older person in the Gaza Strip is likely a member of Hamas, which would, by the way, make up about half the population of the Gaza Strip, because we know about half of it are children. Yeah, the average age of a Palestinian in the Gaza Strip is like 19 years old. You know? Let's see. Because of the scale of this crisis, it's hard to maintain precise figures, but by the end of the year, the UN Palestinian Relief Agency estimated that 1.9 million people had been internally displaced by the war in Gaza, nearly 85% of the population. So 85% of the population of the Gaza Strip has been ethnically cleansed. They've been forcibly removed from their homes by the IDF. Many have been forced to move multiple times as the focus of the IDF campaign shifts. About 1.4 million people are sheltering in UNRWA facilities, with most of the rest staying with friends, family, or strangers, or sleeping rough. About 1 million people, half of Gaza's population, are now living in and around the southern border settlement of Rafah. About 280,000 lived there before the war began. The Council on Foreign Relations estimated in early December that only about 1,100 people had been allowed to leave the Gaza Strip via the Rafah crossing to Egypt. These are not Hamas fighters. And as for the destruction, about 65,000 residential units have been destroyed or rendered uninhabitable, according to the UN Office for Coordination on Humanitarian Affairs. Another 290,000 have been damaged. That means that about 500,000 people have no home to return to. Half a million is about 1/5 the population of the Gaza Strip. Analysis of satellite data cited by the Associated Press suggested that about 2/3 of all structures in the north of Gaza have been destroyed. They've literally destroyed the majority of every standing building in North Gaza. And Yaron Brook is like, well, that's not enough. You got to keep bombing the north. You got to keep bombing North Gaza Strip. You just got to make sure you get all those tunnels. You know? But as Israel moves its gaze down to southern Gaza, he thinks the same thing. So just to add context here, when they mention ratios like that, it is to argue for acceptable collateral damage. It is an attempt to highlight rules of war rather than the morality. However, that ratio can be twisted, saying 5 Hamas fighters are killed by the IDF. Later that day, the IDF kills 15 civilians in a bomb strike. You blend the two numbers to create a false narrative. What the stats need to know is a per strike basis, not a total basis. Yeah, and we're never going to get those numbers from the IDF. You know, we're never going to get those numbers. But the fact that they have a ratio that they call good, and it's 2 civilians for every 1 Hamas fighter, is indicative that they are massacring civilians with a large number of their strikes. The Associated Press stated that the rate of destruction was worse than either the razing of Aleppo in Syria or Russia's bombing of Mariupol. Jizor, thank you for the 4 tier 1 subs. I appreciate it immensely, and I hope the people who got subs appreciate it too. We are now 2/5 of the way to our analog horror stream. But let's finish this this video by this monster.
3, probably since the second Intifada. So this is the second front Israel is fighting on. It's gonna be interesting to see how successful they are, and they're trying to be preemptive. Good for Israelis. This is exactly what they need to do. They need to be preemptive in the West Bank. They need to stop it before these terrorists do harm. And
again, Hamas doesn't hold sway in the West Bank. Like the idea, oh well, you need to preventatively police and crack down on the West Bank because they might have members of Hamas there when like there's not really that much evidence of that. Pretty interesting to me. It seems like you're just encouraging a police state, which you know, given Yaron Brook's political predilections, I'm not surprised he's extremely comfortable with the police state.
And they're arresting them, they're killing them, they're taking their weapons away, they're destroying their infrastructure. At the same time, they're constantly back and forth with the Hezbollah in the north.
Wait, by the way,
these terrorists do harm. And they're arresting them, they're killing them, they're taking their weapons away, they're destroying their infrastructure.
Again, So he's arguing, well, you need to arrest them and kill them in the West Bank too, and destroy their infrastructure in the West Bank, because Hamas might exist there. That's a really convenient argument to just peddle to your settler colonial base. You know, the settlement movement in Israel is very real and has a very large pool of support, especially for the Likud party. And just oddly enough, when you use your police forces to harass people and destroy their infrastructure in the West Bank, and that forces them to go someplace else, conveniently it leaves a lot of land open for settlers to just mosey on in and take. That's crazy. That's so strange. It's interesting that even without evidence, Yaron Brook is pretty in favor of these police actions.
At the same time, they're constantly back and forth with the Hezbollah in the north. They never did the preemptive strike against the Hezbollah in the north, so they are now tit for tat in the north. At some point, Israel's going to have to do more than that. I talked about that on the Tuesday show. They're also bombing Syria.
By the way, it's very interesting to me that he's like, oh yeah, by the way, Israel should invade Lebanon. That's crazy. Yeah. The tit for tat strikes along the border with Hezbollah, not actually a huge problem. Like, the Hezbollah only started firing rockets into like northern Israel with any frequency after they started invading and collectively punishing the Gaza Strip. Obviously, Hezbollah is not a great organization, also an evil org, but like they are trying domestically within Lebanon to kind of transition to more statesman-like how do I want to phrase this? They're trying to transition to be more like reliable when it comes to their governance, because they are the largest political coalition within Lebanon. So like, they've been trying, but at the end of the day, they're still like a pretty awful militant group, you know?
Over the weekend, over the last few days, they killed...
The issue is they're responding to a state that controls a pretty awful militant group that is far stronger than they are, you know? So the comparison here is not even equitable.
One of the leaders of the Iranian Republican Guard in Syria, the Iranians are in mourning as a consequence, so they are very active in Syria. It appears the guy died with his mistress while his wife was at work. So that's kind of what's going on in Israel. At the same time, Iranian affiliated forces continue to attack American forces in Iraq and in Syria. America continues to do almost nothing. They did bomb some facilities of these Iranian-backed forces in Iraq, but it's pathetic, pinpricks. They continue to say, be careful, don't make us angry. At some point, we'll really go after you.
Well, Yaron, I don't. You're so right, Yaron. I don't know why the United States would be, you know, maybe hesitant to just bomb indiscriminately in the Middle East during a point of heightened geopolitical tension, when such kinds of intervention could lead to a full-blown conflict with Iran in the region, which would exponentially make literally everything worse. I can't think of any. Why on earth would they not just? Why aren't we just in? You know, good question. Why isn't the U.S. just invading the Gaza Strip? Why isn't the U.S. invading Yemen? Well, you know, we should just be invading all these countries, according to Yaron Brooks.
Nobody believes them, and the consequence of that is basically American troops are a free fall. You know, you can shoot at them, you can injure them, you can kill them, you can do whatever you want to them, and the Biden administration will do nothing. This is a continuation.
Yeah, how many American troops have died as a result of these attacks in like the last month or two? Citation needed.
Of the Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden policy in Afghanistan, and a continuation of their policy in Syria and Iraq. It is pathetic. And, you know, it's hard for me to express how outraged I am and how outraged you should be. These are your kids, our kids, and they don't care. Our leaders, our generals, our politicians just don't give a damn. If they don't...
You know, it's so interesting to me, by the way, that he started out this video by saying, by inflicting suffering upon the people of the Gaza Strip, that would push them to turn. That would push them to turn on, Hamas. But oddly enough, Yaron Brook has been, these other forces, outside forces, have apparently inflicted suffering upon Yaron Brook, and I don't see him turning against the U.S. military. That's crazy. Instead, it seems he's calling for violence against these external forces that inflicted this vague sense of suffering upon him. So strange. It's almost like he has a double standard and isn't really realizing it here.
Don't give a damn. Then just bring them home. Evacuate. Do what you did in Afghanistan. I mean, the ugliness of Afghanistan is ugly, and a lot of people are going to die because of how we evacuated Afghanistan. But the reality is that was better than staying there and let people just die in Afghanistan. So bring them home, or penalize.
Or Yaron, if we use your same argument, why didn't we inflict untold suffering upon the people of Afghanistan? We had 20 years. Why? We should. I guess we should have just bombed all of their villages into ashes instead of just like a significant portion of their villages into ashes. His argument here is like the United States failed in Afghanistan because we didn't kill enough innocent Afghanis. He's arguing that we should have killed more of them, and that would have turned the Afghan people against the Taliban. Oh, it's crazy that didn't work. That when we just indiscriminately killed like hundreds of thousands of of people in Afghanistan, that didn't magically turn the Afghan people against the Taliban. That's crazy, dog. That's wild. It's almost like he's arguing for genocide. Bold strategy, Cotton.
Iran, penalize the attackers. So finally, the Houthis.
We need to penalize Iran. Good luck.
Of course, U.S. has a big carrier group and other attack ships in the area of the Red Sea and the Sea of Aden. Over the last few, 48 hours, 48 hours, they have knocked out of the sky over a dozen drones, a couple of anti-ship cruise missiles and other missiles launched in the direction of ships. I haven't found a news story that tells me which ships they were targeting, whether they were American ships or commercial ships. America, with regard to the Houthis, is playing defense. They're just knocking stuff out of the sky. They refuse to attack them.
Brianna Huffman, this guy is in charge of like a conservative libertarian think tank. So like that, his main thing is like Randian objectivist economics. He is truly soup-brained.
This coalition they put together, 20 countries, half of whom don't want to be named, is pathetic. Most of them don't want to be part of this coalition. Most of them refuse to engage in, preemptive strikes or in attacking.
Yes. Going after pirates, also known as the least popular thing to do. Literally, there's nothing more popular than like attacking pirates that are going after civilian shipping vessels. Like that's actually one of the most justifiable international actions like on the planet that is agreed upon by basically every nation.
Their attackers, all they want to do is pretend that they're there, but that the United States basically is responsible. And the U.S., for now, is only playing defense. By the way, a few days ago, a ship was attacked off the coast of India by a drone launched by Iran, directly from Iran, not the Houthis. Iran. And what did the U.S., world, India, anybody do about it? Yeah, you guessed it. Bupkis. Nothing. So the U.S. is trying not to escalate. It'll do anything not to escalate.
This video is 2 weeks old. I just want to look at one thing.
Playing defense. By the way, a few days ago, a ship was attacked off the coast of India by a drone launched by Iran, directly from Iran, not the Houthis. Iran. And what did the U.S., world, India, anybody do about it? Yeah, you guessed it. Bupkis. Nothing. So the U.S. is trying not to escalate. It'll do anything not to escalate. It'll basically sacrifice its own troops not to escalate. It'll play defense forever, even if shipping is stopped in the Red Sea, just so it doesn't escalate. I mean, they're so afraid of escalation.
Yeah. Because if Iran and the United States were to go to war with each other, it would not be there's no positive outcome for Iran there, and there's also no positive outcome for the United States. Iran, as I've said numerous times, is basically uninvadable just from a terrain point of view. Like, you can inflict a lot of suffering on the Iranian people, I suppose, but like militarily, they've had hundreds of years to build military forts into the sides of mountains. They've literally had untold amount of time to be able to dig in their defensive fortifications, which renders them, by the way, when they're in mountains, when they're deep underground, renders them pretty impregnable even to massive bombing campaigns. Like, the idea that the United States would be able to just go in, take care of them, and leave is born of incredibly misguided hubris. It's the same kind of hubris that where George H.W. Bush did the mission accomplished banner in Iraq, and then we were still there 20 years later, having to occupy the country. So maybe I should be more critical in who I decide to listen to. Yeah, Pander, that's kind of what I'm getting from this. Yeah. This guy is a dipshit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This guy's a literal soup brain.
Pathetic. Right. And a proposition guaranteed to create more violence in the future. American weakness always leads to more violence in the future. That is always the case.
Yeah, that's a weird platitude to end on. He seems to have a fixation on suffering. Well, he seems to think that making people suffer is going to align them against the people you dislike, which is not the case. Very red-pilled and alpha of him. Oh yeah, 100%.